Want to know what else is about to happen? You ready? You want to know what's about to happen?
Some Shanahan sounding stuff?
No, that's not what I was getting at.
Bummer.
Yes, but that's
Okay.
not what I was getting at. You know what's about to happen?
We're about to talk about Trey Lance, Mark.
No, that's also not a correct answer.
Okay,
that's
damn
2
it.
strikes. Here's what you should have guessed. What's about to happen? Nick Bosa is about to sign a contract extension with the San Francisco 49ers.
Are you sure?
I'm chilling. I'm chilling again.
Oh, you're back chilling?
I'm chilling like a villain.
You don't get to go from Monday alarmist to Tuesday chill.
Oh, no, I didn't. Go back to the Monday comments, and what I said was
You were Joe panicking.
I said that I was not chilling come Wednesday. I said if we get to Wednesday and this isn't done, then I'm going to start getting worried. Those was my exact words, Dibs.
I must have tuned you out.
You got a way of doing that. What does this do for you? Shanahan just said this with regard to the Bosa negotiation.
No, it's going pretty much exactly how I expected it to go. Now it's kind of just been exactly what I thought.
You expected it to go this long?
Yeah, I had a feeling it would.
When do you expect it to end?
Hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, so
Hopefully sooner than later.
what's going exactly
That's breaking
like it,
news.
Well, how does that
Actually,
grab you?
I'm hoping it actually ends later rather than sooner. Thanks, Kyle.
I'm hoping we win football games this year. I don't know if we will. Don't even know if
Sure.
we're going to be alive by week 1.
That's a Kyle classic.
and stuff. But how does that grab you? Translate that. Kyle's like, this is going exactly as I thought it would go.
Right. It
Meaning?
tells me that Nick Bosa was never going to participate in the preseason, and he's okay with it. Nick basically said in no real concrete words, but the indication was set that he will sign when preseason is over, and I'll come to camp when I damn well want to come to camp. And I wonder how the other veterans are going to look at this and feel about it, because nobody likes training camp. Nobody wants to be out there running around. If you're a starter and you've got your gig and you've got your contract, you don't want to be out there having to show up day in and day out. And yet this guy is going to be able to Cadillac it and show up when he wants and how he wants.
See, don't you feel like professional athletes, I think they're cool with that when they're looking at someone who's elite and has achieved that. You would never go in the Warrior locker room and someone being like, Steph deserves the same treatment as me. You wouldn't do that.
But what we did hear about Klay Thompson was that there was a certain amount of disappointment that he didn't put in the work in the offseason. So it is a little bit different. Klay Thompson didn't do anything in the summer, and then they had a team meeting where they talked to Klay about him trying to play his way into shape.
But Nick's not doing that.
Thing.
But Nick's not doing that. Nick's not putting in the work. Klay admitted that he wouldn't shoot the ball in the offseason. One thing I know, I don't know much about this negotiation. Here's what I know. Nick's working out. That's what Bosa's do. Bosa's work out and rush the passer. It's what they do. It's like a Geico commercial, okay? It's what they do, period. So I have no concerns about that. Let's put it this way. I've thought this for a while. I started to get on shaky ground over the weekend because we're at the 3-week mark, and that's what John Lynch said was kind of the mark where he'd start to get concerned. But if you're asking me, do I think that the 49ers wanted Nick Bosa there on day 1 of training camp? My answer is no. I do not think they wanted him there on day 1 of training camp. I am not suggesting that this is some elaborate ploy. That's not what I'm saying. I believe Kyle Shanahan when he says, I wish he was here right now. But do I think that the 49ers looked at this and said, okay, here's what we can do. First of all, we want to get a deal done. And secondly, we look at you, Nick, someone who has had muscle injuries in the past, including in training camp. We're going to look at you. We're going to get our health experts in here and go, how many days do you need to be ready to go sack Pickett in Pittsburgh? And if he's like, I think it's probably about 15, then they're like, great, let's have you show up 15 days before, because why would we risk it? And I actually could make would you agree with this? The other defensive linemen for the 49ers are benefiting from his absence or the opposite?
They're probably benefiting, getting some playing time and getting some reps and getting a chance to go out there and show what they've got. And that is to the extent of the guys who are actually out there playing. And I know that Javon Hargrave hasn't always been out there, and Armstead's only played a little bit. So if it means that one of the twos or one of the threes gets more reps, then sure, they're benefiting.
I just wonder how much the 49ers are even activated or desiring Nick Bosa to be there before now. If they all agree that 2 to 3 weeks is what he needs, if they had all agreed that we're not going to play you in any preseason games, then aren't they almost incentivized to be like, let it look like a big old holdout? And then we'll have you show up because we're not allowed to just, like you said, if you sign a contract extension, well, then why is Nick not here? You're playing favorites. Well, this way, you could just say, dude, show up. We'll get the contract done.
Yeah.
Get your 15 days in. We'll get a good look at some of the other defensive linemen who won't benefit from you being double-teamed all the time. We get a better assessment of who they are. Again, I'm overdoing it. I don't want to call it that planned, that elaborate, but there's two things that happened when I woke up this morning that both made me go back into the chillin' chair, which is A, Kyle Shanahan said this is exactly what I expected, and B, I heard on Bonte and Joe this morning that Nick's in New York. So if Nick's in New York at his agency's office, there's a reason he's at his agent's office. If there's something insignificant going on, you can call. But if there's something significant on, then you go. I think there's something to that, and I would expect something with Nick to happen here in the next handful of days.
In the next handful of days or the next day? Because you said by Wednesday,
right.
If he's not signed, then
listen,
you were going to worry.
I'm not.
So now you're not going to worry anymore if he's not signed by tomorrow?
I'm worried less based on the developments of today.
Right.
And I don't know what that number is for how many days they want or how many days Nick wants. I'm struck.
I'll say this. My worry comes from what happens when he does sign and what happens between when he signs and when he plays if he gets hurt. And we'll talk to Doc Pandia today at 4 o'clock about what it's like to go from, you can train all you want. You can do all the weightlifting and all the training on the side, but playing football, and we know this about getting your football callus and being able to get in football shape. My only concern is that Nick Bosa gets into, not camp, because camp will be over by the time he signs, but he gets into practice, and it's a hamstring, it's a soft tissue, it's a groin, it's an adductor or an abductor, and this is a guy who's got an injury history now. Let's not pretend that Nick Bosa's an Iron Man. He tore his ACL. I think he got hurt in high school. I know he got hurt at Ohio State.
What if they
and
said,
I know he got hurt in the pros. So this is a guy who's been injured many times.
But what if they said that's exactly why we're doing this? You're right. That's exactly why we're doing this.
Right.
We do. There's no Nick is a completed product. He's one of the best players in the NFL.
But you're not hearing my concern about soft tissue injuries from him not being in there and doing all the training with the team, stretching out the groin, stretching out the hamstring, and the calf muscle and all the rest of it.
So he's not doing that now?
I'm sure he is, but he's not doing it against pro football players. He's not practicing and going through drills to where, and the other part of it, too, is
we don't know that.
He's not. Well, we know that he's not making his own offensive line better, which if you are going against the offensive line, if you're doing one-on-ones and you're Colton McKivitz, going against Nick Bosa is going to be more helpful than going up against fill in the blank. I don't want to disparage of your various Kerry Hyder Juniors or anybody else that you could possibly name drop for the bit. Not having Nick Bosa there is not helping the offensive line.
That's a great point. To me, that's that. If you wanted to point to something that the 49ers lose with Nick not being there, that to me is a great point. Like, let's talk to the right tackle and find out if he would have gotten better by going against Nick. Then again, Nick shows up this week. He gets 2 weeks of going against Nick, but I think that's a completely fair point. What about this? Shanahan was asked, how long does Bosa need to be ready for Pittsburgh?
You never know until you put him through that. So, I think Bosa's first year here, he got I think it was a high ankle sprain. I think he went like the first week of practice, and then we didn't see him again until the Wednesday versus Tampa Bay, and he played in that game. So it's different for every player. I have as much confidence with Nick as any player I've ever been around. You always want it to be more time. I wish it was 3 weeks. I wish it was 5 weeks, but not sure how many weeks it's going to be. But You always would like more.
I mean, here's the other thing I notice is that if you look around the league, when there's a holdout, it never sounds like this. Jonathan Taylor does not sound like this. Josh Jacobs does not sound like this. Saquon Barkley did not sound like this, even though I know Saquon never held out. We've all been through the holdout watch before with NFL players. And in some way, shape, or form, it at minimum sounds at least a little bit tense. But this has been the most silent holdout in the history of the league, to where Bosa has said nothing, his agent has said nothing, and every time you ask the 49ers, they light up a cigar and put their feet up. So that has to mean something. I don't know exactly what. I don't know how planned this was. I don't know if it was not planned, but no, maybe they're just amazing at not showing concern, but they look and sound totally unconcerned. And I think that would be hard for a head coach if he truly thought there was a possibility that his best player wasn't going to be there week one.
Well, he's going to be there week one. And that's where I don't think that there should be any concern in terms of will he sign or won't he sign. This is not a holdout in any way, shape, or form in terms of the team is, oh, you're holding out, we're going to fine you. They already said that he will not be fined. They're going to waive the fine, and they're able to do so because he's under contract and this is an extension, so they don't have to worry about that. And Nick Bosa has not said anything about anything that he's demanding, and the team hasn't done this or I haven't done that. Your point is well made in terms of that. I'm just concerned about when he does come in, can he really get ready to be able to play in week one? And if he's not, then we've got another question as it pertains to how this played out, because he's going to sign. I don't think this drags out past Friday, for example.
Yeah, or whenever.
He will sign.
Yeah, I agree.
He won't play in the preseason. He will sign. Will he be ready, and can he stay healthy?
I think Nick Bosa is a Trent Williams level player, and so I don't think Nick Bosa was going to play in these games anyway. If we all are in agreement that he's going to be ready for Pittsburgh, we just played the comments that Kyle made earlier today saying, I trust in him as much as any player I've ever been around to get himself ready quickly. He pointed to last year, and I think that's significant. Think about what he just said about last year. Well, Nick showed up on time last year, and he immediately had a high ankle sprain. And we lost him for all of camp. And then he showed up on Wednesday before we played Tampa, or whatever it was. Was that 2 years ago? Whatever it was. And was ready to go. So that right there tells you maybe they have an incentive to not have him show up early and potentially get hurt. Sure, he could get hurt next week, which puts his status more in doubt, but anybody could. Like, I guess in the end, you just have to ask yourself, do you trust the 49ers game plan with regard to specific players and how to put them in their best position and their most healthy? If you don't, I get it. The Niners don't have a great track record with health.
Right.
But do you trust them or not? Because they're telling you, and they have obviously the backing, I think Nick is too, this is the plan for Nick. And we think that's the best way to have him at his healthiest for this season. And if that's what they're thinking, I don't know who the hell I am to question that. I'm just
well, you're a fan.
I know.
And as a fan, you have the right to question it.
Well, but as a fan, I only care about one thing. Pittsburgh.
Right. And if he comes out in the second series and he pulls a groin, then you can rightly be concerned about why he pulled a groin.
But that can happen. Like this is
of course, and this is the crux of my concern, because yes, it can happen no matter what. But when you don't go through training camp, which is designed to train you for the season, training camp is not only a cash grab. And yes, we know it's for the money, and they have these preseason games that are mostly dog and pony. But you actually have practices where the coaches are all out there and they put you through certain paces for a reason. And that reason is to get you ready to play professional football when it counts. I don't think that they do training camp just for the sake of, well, we have to do training camp. They do it to train players to get ready. So if you don't train to get ready and then you get hurt in this fashion, now if Nick Bosa has somebody fall into his leg and he breaks a leg, that's just a bad beat. That's football. But if something happens, soft tissue, and pulled a groin or pulled a hammy. I think you can rightly look at a lack of training camp, and you can put the blame on both sides for him not being ready.
I guess I would respond to that by saying I don't think actually the existence of training camp is the same for every player. And I think you see teams all over the NFL proving that all the time. So, for instance, you say this is designed to get you ready. Well, it's not designed that way for people who are trying to make the roster. Training camp is designed for them to assess their talent. Training camp is designed to put people in different situations to see if they can handle it. For other players, you're right. It's simply hey, let's get a sweat on and get you ready. But Trent Williams has participated in just about as much training camp as Nick Bosa has.
In practices?
He's there.
Of course.
He's there, but he's doing as little as humanly possible.
But he's there.
But
and he's going through treatment and training, whatever he's doing.
I get it.
He's getting himself ready to play.
I get it. But the plan for him is going to be different than the plan for Jason Poe.
Of course.
And
but
so
the plan for Nick Bosa wouldn't be to just be chilling in street clothes if he was signed.
I don't think he is. I don't think he's chilling, and I don't think he's going to show up 2 days before the game. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think the plan for Nick Bosa is not to say, hey, we got to spend early August getting you ready for early September. I doubt that. Nick's a made dude, and he did it early. You know what I mean? How much has Aaron Donald done this preseason? I bet next to nothing. Bubble wrap. So you're not wrong. I just think it's fair for them to have a different plan for every player.
Sure. They can have whatever plan they want. And, you can do whatever you want in terms of how you think every player should prepare for the season. All I'm saying is if you have a player, in this case, your most important defensive player, he's the defensive player of the year in the National Football League. If you think that the best thing for both sides is for him to not go to camp and it's okay that you hold out and we'll see you when we see you in late August, I hope it works. And if it doesn't work, and he sustains an injury that is of a soft tissue variety, I'm going to be at the head of the line to criticize him and the team.
That's fine.
Because these things shouldn't happen. You're a team already that has an epidemic of injury for a variety of reasons. It's been a big problem. And, we can look at all the quarterback injuries and whose fault is it and all that. That's not what I'm trying to talk about here. You've had injuries. Injuries have been a big part of your tableau. Other teams, yes, it's football. I get that. But if you have an injury of this nature, soft tissue, for a guy who never went to camp, you're opening yourself up to criticism.
I don't think they care about that, and I don't know that there can be any sort of blanket statement here in terms of I'm criticizing you if he gets hurt or I'm not criticizing you if he doesn't get hurt. I don't think that's ever fair to look at anyone before they've even hit the football field and be like, if you get this type of injury, I'm blaming the team. That for me, that's a tough putt in the NFL. But it is a fascinating question for Doc Pandia. I think that's our first question, is how do we process the fact that he's not there, and how does that change the percentage play with regard to the kind of injury you're talking about? That's a fair question. But I don't know if I can make the leap to just automatically, if Nick Bosa gets hurt early in the season, it's automatically the 49ers misplayed training camp. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. It's a fascinating question for Doc Pandia, who's coming up here in 20 minutes.
And I wonder if it affects the percentage of snaps that Nick Bosa can play. And I'm looking at his number last year. He played 70% roughly of the defensive snaps. And that's about the baseline for Nick Bosa. And this is not because he's
in the opening game?
No, in the entire
whole
season.
Got it.
Nick Bosa played 69.65%. Dre Greenlaw, no other defensive lineman played more snaps, a higher percentage than he did. And that's just, the way it goes with the 49ers. They like to rotate their guys.